how do we then take the mainstream messages, how do we take then these really amazing stories that work in some of the mainstream movies and broaden the market, get the younger audience in, make this mainstream, and what I always like to say is make consciousness cool. I mean, you know, instead of this escapism or popcorn, what do we need to do as a community? Is it a different distribution option? Is it a different way of storytelling? What is it to bring these mainstream movies, mainstream messages through in a way that we all get behind?
I mean, what my first film, Hummingbird, actually teachers have used in the classroom, and I filmed in Brazil, like kids that make their lives look good, and they're like, the 8th graders are saying, wow, my life's not so bad. And I found that that's really nice to reach them, to see the other kids talking about problems that at least mirror or are often worse than their own. I think that's what I like about the international issues. I mean, I spent 8 months in Bangladesh. It made me appreciate being a woman in the West, and I felt like I advanced 100 years. And when people see that and see it raining in your household, you know, baby crying and sneezing, they're like, oh, my life's pretty damn good. So I think a lot of it is, and unfortunately, a lot of international films don't make it in the US because people don't want to read subtitles, or, you know, but I think perspective shifts. And but I think this competitive edge or competitive attitude, one of the most profound moments I've ever had was when I was living in Brazil, and I talked to a 6-year-old about swimming, and I was like, oh, are you doing swim competitions? And she's like, we don't compete. And my world just stopped, and I was like, why am I even asking that question? Wow, I am so programmed, and the Olympics and this, and so I think you're onto something with getting that anti-competitive cooperative message out somehow is important.
I think the kids want to, I mean, I think we have to change our language and our messaging. I mean, I think kids are kind of tired of hearing the doom and gloom. We distributed a film called Fuel, and when the film came to us, there was a picture of the world with oil all over it. And it looked kind of opening harsh because everyone thought, well, I don't want to go see another depressing movie about the oil world. And it actually wasn't a depressing movie at all. And you know, once we changed the imaging around and put a lighter image on the cover, which is really, it was actually a story about one guy's journey into finding out about different alternative energy. When we changed the poster, we changed the trailer, we took out the dark guy in the beginning and kind of lightened everything up and made it funny, it really shifted in terms of people going to see the film, and it really did make an impact. And so, you know, again, I think the kids are, I think that young people are asleep, but you know, I spend a lot of time working with, talking to young people, and when I speak to them in a way that's hopeful and inspiring and funny and light and in their language, they respond more to me. I think a lot of the films that are in the mindful media genre tend to be really heady, tend to be really intellectual, and tend to be very preachy, and you know, that doesn't work with young people. And also, a lot of the times, they see the people that are in the movies, like you said, are really living what they're talking. So it's really, I mean, we have to shift our languaging in terms of how we're communicating, because, you know, all us old people, like, we either know it and are failing at it and don't really care, or we know it and we think we got it. We don't need to make any more of these movies for us, really, you know. I mean, I think it's time to, I'm working on communicating to younger people, you know, because that's our hope, I guess.
Yeah, I think Betsy's right, and the theme that I hear in you is something I think we fail to acknowledge in this space, and that is a lot of the films aren't that good and that engaging to a very alive population. While I do believe the kids are tired, they're still alive and they want something, they want something, they want, and they're hungry, yes, yes. And the films just aren't that good, and there's a reason. It's really challenging. What we're trying to translate is, it's like trying to describe the scent of a rose. How do you describe what has got hold of you, right? How do you describe what's got hold of your spirit that makes you want to serve? It's really, really difficult. And I just find myself always going back to what it means to be human. So the more human a story I tell, the better. A human being who we can relate to, who has problems like us, who's in this cultural paradigm now and pressured, but who somehow rises above it in the most entertaining, hilarious, I hope in my film, circumstances possible. I don't even like the word spiritual. You know, I speak a lot of people somehow think that I'm this spiritual guy, like, because, you know, I did Bruce Almighty, and I do have a personal dialogue with God, just in case you, but that would be Morgan Freeman. It's, but, you know, it's like the Catholic Church, which I grew up in, is always looking at films and going, let's describe the films that are the most faith-based films. And they always go to someone wearing a priest collar or someone wearing a nun's habit. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Jesus spoke in parables. He talked about a virgin, which we don't talk about anymore, or a king or a landowner, and then he told stories, and they were human stories, and we could relate to them and access them. And I think we've forgotten that a story, like Scent of a Woman was about, you know, prostitution, but it was about the love of a man and a young man, and how they edified each other and grew and that was a beautiful film. But they never called it a faith-based film or a spiritual film.
Right.
Gorgeous. It was a gorgeous film. Forrest Gump is the meek shall inherit the earth. That's as spiritual a film as you get. You know? So, anyway, just human. Did I mention human?
Yeah. I heard it said well recently, it's like the stories that illuminate the humanity in all of us, you know, the shared human values that many of us have.